Bellerin! Bellerin! Hector Bellerin!
Owned by Mustafi. Bellerin! Brilliant! 2-2!
Hector Bellerin, Bellerin, Hector Bellerin. Na, 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 na. Dat is het. Ja.
Okay, Arsenal fans, welcome to the latest edition of Saved by the Bellerin, the Arsenal Football Club webcast, podcast, all multimedia cast here on the Sports Talk Line Network. As usual, I'm Raphael, joining you from the United States, and joining us this week from London, the full English contingent, left to right across my screen. Ryan, welcome, Ryan.
Hello, mate. Hope you're well.
I am, thank you. Sam, with sporting a very fresh Arsenal look. Welcome, Sam.
Thank you, mate. Always good to be back.
And filling out the team this week is Dean. Welcome back, Dean.
Hello, mate. Good to be here as always. Hope everyone's doing well.
Yes. I think we're all feeling a little bit better. We've seen the last of that very trying 2019-2020 Arsenal season. Came to a close Sunday afternoon at the Emirates with a 3-2 win over Watford. Another shaky win over a club that was fighting relegation. This time Arsenal pushed them down. In the prior match, they lost to Aston Villa. And that actually may have some ramifications on their transfer menu. We'll talk about that in a moment. But first, let's stay with this. 10 games post-COVID, after that enforced break due to the coronavirus outbreak. Arsenal, not great, but not terrible. The end of that 10-game run, 5 wins, 1 draw, 4 defeats. How do we classify that? I'm just going to start with you. You're right in the square next to me, Ryan. Is that a success? Is that a failure? Or do we still have to grade Mikel Arteta on a curve?
For Arsenal, as who we think we should be, it's terrible. It's diabolical. The games we lost, we shouldn't have lost. And I think we can give Arteta a break. It's not his fault. He's been given a unbalanced team. So I think if Arteta had been given the start of the season, if he started when Emery started this season, we would have been a lot better off at the end of this season. So I'll give him a pass. So, but yeah, it's not great. We should have beat Villa, should have beat Brighton, should have beat Leicester. There's 9 points, and then we're in the top 4.
Yes. And so many goals, so many moments, so much to talk about. Sam, let's just stay with that though. You and I are pulling our hair about this club way back in October, when it was clear they were drifting and it was a mess. Do you have hope? Obviously, you got the new kit, but do we have new hope going into the season, even with this up and down, this really dodgy lineup, this erratic play? Did you see enough to feel 2020, 2021 is going to be different?
Yeah, I think we've seen enough on the field to see that what Mikel Arteta is trying to implement in terms of the playing style. We can see the culture that he's trying to create behind the scenes. The squad looks a lot more together than what it was when Emery was here. You can see in the players' body language that they were more respondent to Mikel than what they were to Emery. You could tell if we went 1-0 down under Emery, the whole team's body demeanour just completely changed, and everybody's heads were down. Once we went 1-0 down, you just looked and was like, I don't really see us getting back into the game. But under Mikel, everything seems a bit more positive. As Ryan said, there were games that we've lost, but that's personally, I think that's down to personnel. So once Mikel gets his own people in, I think 2020, 2021 will be a lot more positive. But at the moment, if we was heading into the new season with the same players that we've got at the moment, I would hazard on the side of it would be a long season, but with additions, this team can really elevate. Mikel's shown in terms of since he's taken over, I think the league table stood that we was 4th, I think it was. So yeah, that in itself is positive, and if we can replicate that over a course of a whole season, it's going to be even better. Obviously, we know investment's coming, so time to get really behind the team and be positive.
All right. You brought up a lot of topics that I'm going to just volley over to Dean. Again, we've talked about in previous pods about the need for change. I'm going to start with this question to you because Mikel's comments have been kind of all over the map. In one sense, after one match we hear, oh, there's not going to be investment. And then after another match, he clarifies, he says, I have a good relationship with ownership. I expect changes. We have a blueprint. I'm happy with it. And it seemed to change week to week. And I think one of the reasons we wanted to get out of that season was just to get out of that emotional yo-yo. But we know some changes coming. So the question I'm going to pose for you, though, is does this team need a couple of surgical changes? Or is it really still ill? Does this lineup need radical surgery, in your opinion?
I think I'm just going to answer that in sort of 2 parts. The first one, the sort of, I guess you'd say, slightly flip-flop comments from Mikel. I don't so much think they're flip-flop as opposed to maybe sometimes being taken out of context somewhere along the lines. I think we also assumed at one stage that he himself may have felt he was slightly given a little bit too much away. So he kind of pulled back a little bit and just let the reins run themselves. So I think everything he said has kind of run the same course, just, I guess, under a different guise. In terms of, surgery or what have you, is it going to be a minor outpatient deal or is it going to be a big long-term in the hospital under the knife sort of thing? I don't think we need radical changes, so to speak. However, I think the changes we do will have a radical effect, if that makes sense. We only need to remove and replace the odd 1 or 2 players to really implement, I think, the system and role that Mikel's trying to integrate into the side. So I think he's got his eye on a profile. We've been saying this for a long time. He's got a certain profile he wants for his defenders. He's got a certain profile he wants for his wide men, his central mids, and his forwards. And there's probably 1 or 2 players in each area right now that just aren't fitting that bill whatsoever. But just a few little minor tweaks can really soup up the car. And I feel that's what he's going to go for. The odd 1 or 2 here and there. Nothing, we talk about a major overhaul, but it doesn't have to be a buckload out and a buckload in to do that. So less is more, so to speak. I guess that's what I'm going to go with. Less is more.
Okay. And we're going to talk about who might fit into that less category. Who are the critical names that must come in, and just a little bit later in the show. I want to add one other thing. You made the point, because we were talking about the up and down, and on the group we talk about the up and down. And my 2 cents on this, looking at this, the more I look at it, I mean, I've come to the conclusion that, I think one of the reasons so many fans on social media were twisting themselves out of shape was that they saw Mikel's comments as kind of a very open conversation with the club's ownership, and this was being done through the press. And I think he clarified, all of those messages were really for us, kind of assuring us the changes are going to come in. A lot of people think like he's asking, he's demanding, he hasn't received assurances. It seems kind of strange that the ownership would kind of keep their manager in the dark, especially a new manager who they praise so frequently. So I guess, maybe it's just a matter of the rest of us needing to kind of take a step back and take stock and say, the manager is really talking to us. And what he says seems to be, and we'll address this more in a few minutes, quite good. But let's move to topic 2 off that. season is not over, and they have a critical match because it has a lot of implications. Obviously, it's a cup final, so pride is there. A silverware, Mikel Arteta can still let Arsenal leave this very crazy season with a significant trophy. They beat Chelsea in the FA Cup final this Saturday, but also a lot of other factors. This is a replay of the Europa League final, and we know Arsenal entered that match with a chance to win it and get back into Champions League because they came in 5th off the season, failed miserably. We all came in so high and left so low. Europa League is writing on this, and possibly it could have some consequences. It could really, winning this, not just pride and the silverware, but could really boost their transfer kitty and their transfer, their transfer targets. But let's focus on the match before we get to the targets. I went back and I looked at the lineups from a year ago, and this is two same teams. A lot of people saying, "Oh, it's a rematch." Really isn't, right? Two different managers. I'm going to go back and start. I'm going to start with you, Sam. We're going to cycle it a little bit this way. Two different managers, right? Sarri was managing Chelsea. Emery was managing Arsenal. Now it's Frank Lampard. Now it's Mikel Arteta, the former players. Very different lineup. I went and looked at the Arsenal roster that started that match. Petr Cech was in goal. Laurent Koscielny was in the back line with Nacho Monreal, with Socrates. Very, very different set of people. I think there's only 3 people who started that match who are important to this one. We can kind of wipe the slate clean. What do you look for as a match? What do you look for Arsenal versus Chelsea 90 minutes?
Within 90 minutes, I think it'll be frenetic football because we've got two new managers, 2 completely new philosophies, which both managers have tried to implement over the time of which they've been there. Obviously, Fat Frank's been there for the season, so his players are a lot more affiliated to what he wants. Mikel has had to chop and change between formations, how we go about attacking teams. But if we look at the Chelsea game, I think when Mikel just took over, where we was 1-0 up, but then we gassed out and lost 2-1, I think it was. For the first half, we was all over him. To be perfectly honest, we battered him. And we should have possibly been 2-3 up at the time. So if I was going to approach Chelsea, I would look at that team, that blueprint of how we played Chelsea before, try and implement that style within the next 4 days, and really go at Chelsea, because if you can catch them cold and catch them off their day, they're there for the taking, basically. Obviously, we all know a cup final, again, another North London, a London derby. Form goes out the window. It's something that we can really capitalise on, and I honestly think we can win this, and we need to win this. The pressure is more on Arsenal than what it's on Chelsea at this moment in time. Could that affect Chelsea's mentality? Possibly. Should it ramp up Arsenal's mentality? Absolutely. So I think that we can get at Chelsea. They're not the best at the back. If you play on the floor, cut their passing lanes off from the back, you can capitalise on their mistakes. They're not all the full team at this moment in time. They've got a really good front line, midfield. Their defence is shaky.
All right, and let's focus on that, because we know this game means there's probably more. I would agree with them. More pressure on Arsenal, because losing this they lose European football, something that they at least were able to take away from this last match. But if we look at Chelsea, they're not in good form. I mean, they were struggling to get into Champions League. That seemed to be their clear objective. They made it. They have it. I've seen some chatter from Chelsea fans on social media kind of questioning, should they go for this match? Now that they have Champions League, now that they have the greater objective, how much should they prioritize that? I have to think the players want this, but the desperation level isn't there. And as we said, Chelsea's defense has been shaky. The one really tough opponent they played with Liverpool, who also had at that point nothing to play for, Liverpool put 5 goals on them.
They did, yeah. But I still see Chelsea take this. As Sam said, I mean, their front line is pretty good. I mean, Christian Pulisic is definitely going to be a threat. I mean, he showed he was a threat against Liverpool. I think they get, I'm not going to say obviously worse, but I think they get less effective as you move from front to back. However, as an Arsenal fan, I think we can kind of say that happens with us as well in our squad from time to time at the minute. That our front line's amazing, our midfield's decent enough until you kind of get to a certain area, and then our defence is shaky more often than it's not. So for me, I feel it's going to be an even game, but I do feel if we knuckle down and focus and get our heads right, we can definitely do it. And as Sam said, we need to do it. In terms of Chelsea's, I guess the desperation to win it. No, I've not seen much at all on social media from Chelsea fans. The odd bit of banter, the odd bit of sort of niggling at Arsenal fans and then back and forth about it, but nothing really ingrained in a sort of, we're going to do, we want it more than you, blah, blah, blah. I do feel, as you said, the players want it. I do feel it's something Frank Lampard definitely wants. Getting into Champions League, whatever they've got their spot, they've done that. But this is yet another trophy. Another way for him to prove himself to Abramovich, another way to him to prove himself to the fans. I don't think any team really goes out there at this stage, no matter what they've won beforehand, and sort of thinks, right, I'm not going to try. So whether or not they're going to be as passionate as us, whether or not they're going to want it as much as us, I still don't think, it's going to be a walk in the park for us. However, with that in mind, mentality-wise, I do feel that we are going to go out there stronger. So focus, knuckle down, as I said, and I do feel we could take advantage of that, but still not rest on our laurels with it and not rely on them being so lackluster or lazy.
Okay, and Ryan, let's stay with the match. Let's stay with the pressure, right? Arsenal proved under Mikel Arteta that they could handle pressure, especially against tough opponents, right? Leading into this, we talked about that really rough gauntlet of games where they beat Wolves, they beat Liverpool, they beat City, those last two in 4 days, had really competitive matches that could have gone either way with Tottenham and Leicester. Got points, results in 4 of those 5 matches. It seems that they kind of let down against the lesser teams, against Brighton, obviously against Aston Villa. I think Mikel is not going to have a problem selling his players that they could handle the pressure. But, can he bring them back? And you were talking, I know, during the match of ways to attack Chelsea. And you brought up a name. Again, we talk about him every week, but 1 game left in the season. Are we going to see Mesut Ozil? And is he the kind of guy is this the kind of match where he finally could be valuable? And is Mikel Arteta, has he been playing a mind game, keeping Mesut Ozil in his back pocket all this time?
I was looking at ways to beat Chelsea, and from what I gathered was, if you have a number 10 in and around Jorginho, he struggles massively. And no better person in our squad to play at Wembley on the biggest stage is Mesut Ozil. Like, he's the only player who can play in at number 10 and create for our front three. because they don't have the pace at the back. Aubameyang will fly up the wing, Pepe on the other wing. They don't have the pace to keep up with them. And you need someone in that number 10 who's going to play off the shoulder of Jorginho. Xhaka will find him in between the lines. And then we're on their defence straight away. But unfortunately, I can't see Ozil playing, because if he was going to play, he would have played against Watford. Because he would severely lack match fitness purely because of that. But I think if we're to go down the route of the 3-4-3 that we've been playing recently, I think you'd have to ask Lacazette to sit on Jorginho, because I don't mind Chelsea's defenders playing out from the back, because they can't. But if they give the ball to Jorginho and he's in space, it's going to be a long afternoon for our midfielders, because they'll have 3 against 2 and we'll be overrun in the middle. So that's the way I think we can beat Chelsea, is having someone sat on their deepest midfielder.
All right. Again, coming up, a lot to look forward to. But again, let's go back. Let's recap the season. Topic 3, season's over. We can break it into chunks. We can look at it any way we want to, or we can just say, let's just push it behind us. Let's take some individual bright spots from that. Dean, I'm going to start with you here. Let's go around and let's give your names. And I have different categories. Oftentimes, the most valuable player is misunderstood. Some people think, is this the most valuable player that if you take him off, the team suffers the most? Or some people say, is that the player of the year, the best player of the squad? I'm going to break it down into 3 categories here. Best player, the most valuable player, and then the best newcomer on the 2019-2020 squad. You get first crack at it.
Okay. Mine, to me, seem pretty obvious. They may not be for everyone else, but obviously, best player, I've got to say Aubameyang. Without his goals, I think Ryan or Sam pointed out that without his, we would have had 34 for the entire duration of the season. He doesn't go a season since 14-15, I think, without scoring 20 at least. Most valuable or most important to us. At one stage, I wouldn't have said this guy, but lately now I'm definitely going to say Granit Xhaka. As we discussed recently on a podcast as well, he just seems to be the strongest player, the one that can't be rested. And in the one game he wasn't starting, we saw how we were. So definitely for me has to be Granit Xhaka. In terms of newcomer for this roster for the full-time team, and he's definitely earned it and deserved it, Bukayo Saka, sorry. Well, I guess they are obvious ones, to be honest. So Aubameyang, Xhaka, Saka for me.
All right, Ryan, same categories. Any different names?
Best player, I'm going to go with Aubameyang. That's the most obvious one, I think. My most important player, you guys would have think, he's going to say Granit Xhaka as well. I'm not. I'm going to say Bernd Leno. Although Martinez has done well recently, we would have been in a relegation battle if we didn't have Bernd Leno in goal. He saved us so many times when Aubameyang weren't scoring goals. And there was a point where Xhaka weren't playing in that bit under Emery, but Leno kept us in with a shout of winning games. So I'm going to say Leno. Best newcomer, again, Saka is obviously a name hard to list, but I'm going to go with Martinelli because he's come from the 4th tier in Brazil. He's come to the Premier League and he looks like a Premier League proven player. He scored 10 goals in 12 starts, numerous assists, and he scored that goal against Chelsea. So I'm going to go with Gabriel Martinelli as best newcomer.
And that's one player I'd really love to have this weekend against Chelsea. Gabby Martinelli. All right, Sam. Listening to those guys, I'm going to give you another category. I'm going to give you a 4th category because there are a lot of players who deserve some praise. But again, most important, best player, most valuable player, newcomer, and then the comeback player? Is there anybody who either within the course of the season or from last year to this year really turned his profile with the club around?
You've done me on the fourth one.
You can take it any way you want to.
Yeah. Best is Orba. There's no two ways about it. Most important, I'm going to agree with Ryan here and go with Leno. Newcomer, I'm sorry, I'm going to be a cop-out and go both Saka and Martinelli. Have it as a joint award. I'm sorry, I just can't split the two. Like, in equal amounts, they've been just as important as each other. For being a newcomer this season, for various reasons in both the roles, really. Comeback king. I want to say Mustafi under Arteta, but after the Tottenham game, he can get in the bin. I'm going to have to give it to Granit Xhaka because the amount of abuse this guy has had over his Arsenal career has been astonishing. And for people to wish death on his wife and his kid and still expect him to run out week in, week out and play for the shirt, I'm sorry. If that was me or anybody else, they go, sod this, I'm out. Sod your club, I don't need this. For him to come back with the professionalism that he's come back in, the way that he makes our midfield tick, and how crucial he has also been in the way that Saka was playing when he was playing a left back and left wing back. It shows the true core values of that individual. So for comeback king, I'm going to say Granit Xhaka.
Okay, and I'm going to tweak it a little bit because, again, we're playing in the same pool. And one of the reasons I said comeback is that if we looked at most valuable, there's several names that I would put in there. I'm going to stay with you guys. I'm going to say Abba's got to be the best player. Most valuable, we could have put Saka in that category because he was so important, when they were struggling. I'm going to put him in the best young player award, and just the vital, the games he gave them at left back is going to put him just a touch above Martinelli there for me. Most valuable player, I'm going to share the award. You guys said Leno. I'm going to say Leno and Emi. Leno before the break, but after Leno's injury, Martinez was another guy who just came out of nowhere and did some real high quality work, helped keep the club on a winning keel and helped them with a couple win streaks. Yeah, Xhaka, as you said, Sam, how many people just wanted him gone in January, if not sooner? From the time he threw the armband down in frustration, people were saying, I don't even want you back on the club. I don't want you starting. I don't want you in uniform again. And here we are talking all the 10 post-COVID matches. He was just holding the middle of that club together. So yeah, now we're talking about him as an essential player. Like, don't let him leave. That's a real comeback. And to do it, as you said, to be able to put all of that out of his mind and perform the way he did, speaks so well of his character. Shows you why both clubs, both managers, for different reasons, he got the armband from both managers different ways. We criticized Emery for kind of giving the club too much pull, and then Arteta took that away. But they each came back, and the club came back and said, this is the guy who makes everything tick. So yeah, comeback player of the award for him. Of the year for him. Can't even speak anymore. Now, we're half an hour in. We haven't talked about transfers a bit. The window opened yesterday. Already lots of chatter, lots of names, lots of different directions we can go with this. But Sam, I'm going to start with you. And we're going to lots of different directions. But comments today from the manager that he's looking for, or he told the press, he's looking for a wide player among all the other items on his shopping list. We've seen rumors in the Portuguese press certainly the last week, that Arsenal is heavily, and in the Spanish press too, Arsenal is heavily pursuing Jolson, the 17-year-old wonder kid from Sporting Lisbon. But as we know, a lot of the familiar names come up. Willian he's looking for a new deal. A lot of pundits are pushing him to Arsenal, have been for weeks. It took minutes from the end of the season for Zaha's name to come back on the radar. And then one other one, I've got it written down here. Let me see. I don't want to miss out. But we've been talking about Benrahma coming up with Brentford. If that's, where do you think the club is going to go? How would you rate them? Do you have preferences? Are there some players you don't want off that menu?
Willian and Zaha are two I'm going to chuck in the bin instantly. Yes, Willian is a good player. He's a manager's delight in terms of his work rate going forward and also tracking back. But he wants a 3-year contract. He's 31, 32? For me, no more Chelsea cast-offs. We're looking forward as a football club. We're not interested in elder statesmen from Chelsea no more. We're building for the future. We're not building for a year down the line, 2 years down the line. We're building for 4 or 5 down the line, like a Liverpool. Zaha is, I know a lot of fans, unbeknownly to myself, want him. But for me, he is a player that will beat a player once in a game. We'll try the same thing again with that player, get dumped to the floor, and then we'll sulk for 30 minutes. Yes, he has flashes of brilliance, but he's just not someone that's consistent enough for us. And for the amount of money that we're going to be spending, for me, there's a lot better out there. It was mentioned in the group chat today, Douglas Costa of Juventus. He doesn't seem to be somebody that is permanently in the Juventus side. He would be perfect if we could swap him for Lacazette. Or, as you say, Benrahma. It is a big jump from the Championship to the Premiership, but I would take that chance. That guy has got the X factor about him. He's quite similar in play to Mahrez. I would have him all day long. If Brentford don't come up to the Premiership, you can probably snag him for about 15 million, and that will be an absolute gem of a deal. There are plentiful wingers around in the big leagues that are doing good numbers, more numbers than what we've had. It's just a case of, in terms of a wide player, what type of profile does Mikel Arteta want? Does he want a goal-scoring winger? Does he want a creative winger? A combination of both? Or, if we're going to be playing a 3-4-3 moving forward, as I've said in my latest article, the Arteta rebuild, I don't think that's going to be one that we are going to be using. But if that is the case, do you want a defensive winger that can go both ways? There's a lot of questions around there, but I think it purely depends on the profile. And Zaha and Willian, I don't think we're looking at them as a profile, because I think that we are looking for a creative and also a goal-scoring winger.
All right. Dean, I'm going to stay with the position because, again, you've been following it. I've started following it a little bit more. I want to talk a little bit more about Jolson. The price tag really raises the eyebrow. Release clause around 40 million euros. That's a lot. He's 17 years old, but yet Portuguese press has said Arsenal was in. I've been checking all day because there were stories that Kia Drobchan and other club reps were going to be in Portugal yesterday or perhaps today to try to close the deal. If you look at the big Spanish dailies, the clubs that follow Barca were saying a week or two ago, even they were admitting Arsenal has moved ahead of Barcelona. This is a player Barcelona really liked, but they've had to concede that Arsenal was ahead of him. So clearly there's interest. But we look at that price tag, we look at the age, we look at the risk. I mean, we can say, can lightning strike twice as it did with Martinelli? Martinelli didn't cost 40 million. They must really like this kid.
Yeah, I actually think it may even be a little bit more than that. I thought it was 40 million pounds. So 45 million. Yeah, so 45 million euros, 40 million pounds, which obviously generally now a lot of with the European market, etc., they always talk in euros. So I'm sitting there always trying to convert it, and it's not much difference, but it's still a lot for a kid of his age. He's 17 years old. There was a report that we'd gone in and made a 15 million euro, which I think was 13.5 million pound bid already, just to try and, I guess, test the waters, as you say. And they've, no go for it. And then there's these reports that, okay, well, Arsenal reps are going to go over with Kia, meet up in Lisbon and slam down the 40 million pounds. Now, if there's truth to that, then this kid is clearly really good. Apparently, it's another one that was spotted by Francis Kagigao. I think that's how you pronounce it. Kagigao.
Kagigao, I think. Yeah.
Kagigao, yeah. Obviously, he spotted Martinelli. We know his history. Cesc, Bellerin. There's many, and so I mean, if he thinks he's good, who am I to argue? However, as you say, the price tag, the release clause, it does raise eyebrows. He's apparently got a similar profile of his age to Cristiano Ronaldo, and Bruno Fernandes, but still, it's that price tag. Do Arsenal have a plan of going out there and obviously having Kia lay the groundwork already, and it's going to turn out we pay nowhere near that to get him? Maybe put some kind of multi-bonuses towards Sporting Lisbon, like we did with, I think we did it with Ituano for Martinelli. I think we put some bonuses up there for him. Will we go out there with a financial sort of backing for them in terms of appearance fees, cup wins, etc.? Or
let me throw something else in there, because you and I were discussing this. Also, some stories prior to yesterday's that a player might be going the other way, and we've been kicking around names. Who would it be? Somebody off the current roster, somebody on the youth squad. That seems to be another flavor of getting the deal done.
Yeah, quite possible. I mean, the only reason I haven't brought that up now is because obviously, as you say, we've both been sort of looking, and no other editorial has kind of brought that up since. So that's kind of died down. However, it doesn't mean it's off the table, of course. So it is another option. They were looking at sending a youngster out on loan there, and we were kind of saying, who could it be? Would it be someone like Joe Willock? Would it be Nelson? But if it's Nelson, he'd probably go back to Germany. And there was talk of, I think, Besiktas approached us about taking Nelson on loan. That's a different story here, but obviously Arsenal said he's going nowhere. He's in our plans for the coming season. So he would look unlikely to go to Portugal. Just going by Jolson's sort of where he plays, he can play along sort of like both wings and as a second striker, so to speak. The only player I could see the youngsters at Arsenal currently that are coming up and being used that fit that profile, being used in that way, would have been Willock. But yeah, I can't see him going out there either. His brother went out there though, didn't he? His brother went out to Portugal, I believe, and played some out there. So I mean, I don't think it would be against it. I know he's over here now, but I don't think he would have been against that. Now I'm thinking of it, but I don't know. It is, as much as I believe that this move, we are pushing this to get this deal done. The more I think about the price tag, I just either think we've got something big up our sleeves to get it done for not even half that fee, or the story's going to end up falling flat on its face, if I'm being honest with you. But it's only because of that price tag. It just seems a stumbling block now, the more I look at it.
All right, Ryan, let's stay with the agent, because as we said, Kia Drupchen is Jolson's agent. well, actually, let's push Kia to the sides. I have a question. He's also Coutinho's agent, but I want to actually talk to you about Thomas Partey. All right, because he is the name. Dean was talking earlier about maybe getting not so many players, but getting really important ones. He seems to be kind of the linchpin to the whole rebuild. He's the one name that I think we'd be most disappointed if we didn't get. And yet yesterday, as soon as the window opened, it seemed like, stories just flooded out that Arsenal was no longer willing to pay the release clause for him. And everybody was in a panic. Oh, they're not going to get him. And then what we're hearing today is, well, actually the clubs are communicating. And maybe it's a matter that they won't pay now rather than they won't pay the release clause. Is this just regular negotiation that happens to be spilling out? I mean, it doesn't seem like there's a rush here. I mean, obviously the clubs are going to come back in 2 weeks, but 10 days from now, he's going to be walking out onto a pitch for a Champions League match for Atletico Madrid. It doesn't seem any hurry. Arsenal doesn't need to get him now. It just seems to be a matter of finding a way to get him.
Oh, you're right. And I think it's just negotiations spilling out for everyone to see. This usually happens with Arsenal. Stuff like this happens all the time. But one thing that does annoy me is fans are like, oh, you should just pay the release clause. Just get it done. Well, why? If you can get him for cheaper, get him for cheaper. You don't go into a shop and ask for a £1 can of Coke, pay the pound. If you can get it for 50p, you pay 50p for it. So I don't understand why everyone's shouting, pay it now, pay it now. Because if you can get Thomas Partey for a player plus money, do it. If you can get him for less than the release clause, do it. If you can pay more than the release clause and spread it out over a numerous amount of seasons, like Sam tweeted, do it. You don't want to put all of your cards on the table straight away, because that's just bad negotiations. And I do think it will eventually get done at some point. When that is, probably be after Atletico come out of the Champions League, because all four of us have said he probably wants to just focus on that. That's probably like the biggest games of his season. And for him to not play in the Champions League next season, if he does sign for us, he's going to want to cherish those games before he eventually brings us back into it.
And, to add to that, they've done really well in Champions League. I mean, they've been in a couple of finals. They just knocked off Liverpool, the defending champs, in it. So they've got to be telling themselves, we've got as good a shot at this as anybody else still in the competition, right?
No doubt. They probably think they're favourites, because City have got Real Madrid on the ropes at the moment. City, I think, are 3-1 up. So who else is there? Barca, they're not being the greatest this season. PSG have just confirmed Mbappe's missing their game. So Atletico could go deep in this competition.
Okay.
Which is bad news for us.
That would probably mean we have to be very patient if we want Thomas Partey. But again, I think in the case of Thomas Partey, he's worth the wait. We have to wait till August for him. So be it. I mean, I agree. I think everybody agrees. That's the one. If you want to come out in August and say, hey, Arsenal's added Thomas Partey, that's been a successful window. Let's move to another big rumor, Sam. Another big name. Looked like, we were talking about him last week, possible Philippe Coutinho, Matteo Guendouzi swap. Obviously, the terms have changed. Barca have come back and said, well, we value him at 80 million euros. Arsenal value Guendouzi at 40 million euros. So we'd prefer just 80 million in cash. But if you want to do a player swap, we want 40 million for him. And they seem to be pushing that deal back. Arsenal obviously is not willing to pay that much money for him. But at the same time, if you read the stories carefully, everybody was thinking, oh, this deal's falling apart. Oh, this is another Kia thing. Arsenal's doing it as a favor. But the more I investigate, the more I look at it, the more I think it's the same as Partey, is that people are flying off the handle. They want this thing done. I mean, Barca has 3 years left on this player's contract. It's a massive contract. I mean, they're going to be taking a bath financially regardless. If they want to move him, they need to move him. There are not many teams that want him and can afford him. Is this just another case of where people just need to be a little bit more patient?
Yeah. The simple fact of the matter, it is like Bayern Munich is still in the Champions League, I believe. So Kia Drubstrin was on Talksport today. Said that obviously with the Champions League still going on, Philippe Coutinho wants to come back to the Premier League. He's got some options in England. Doesn't rule out staying at Barcelona, but ultimately this is going to be another one where we're going to have to wait for the Champions League to conclude, or until Bayern get knocked out. But in relation to a deal, for me personally, just because of my dislike for Guendouzi, I'd pay 40 million in Guendouzi. I'd pay it off the bat, because you're getting rid of, say, a fifth choice and signing a world-class quality player, and one that's much needed at Arsenal as well. But ultimately, clubs now are just posturing against each other. They're saying where they stand. The negotiations need to take place. Well, to be perfectly honest with you, some negotiations have already taken place. It seems that media are roughly about 2 weeks behind. So I'd imagine talks have already taken place for Coutinho. I'd probably say it's going to be a loan with a mandatory buy at the end of it, but the mandatory buy will be a lot less than what people will think. That is going to be my honest opinion on the matter. In terms of if he was to get Coutinho, again, Kia was talking about wages. And with that, he was saying that players, representatives, clubs have got to be a lot more responsible now for getting football back on its feet. So the days of massive wages are taking a hit. There will be a reduced demand for big wages. So that may be beneficial, but if Kia's talking like this, I would suspect a lot of his clients will be taking big hits in contract renewals or new contracts. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. But yeah, I think that it's just one that we're going to have to wait for.
I want to add to that. The story came out yesterday that there were three. Did Kia say this morning that there were three, or I believe he said there was two clubs? He had two offers in England. Am I remember that correctly?
Yeah, that was for Willian.
Oh, for Willian. Oh, okay. Okay, so I'm misremembering. There was a story yesterday that Coutinho apparently has three suitors in the Prem, Arsenal being one, Spurs being another, and Leicester being a third. And as you said, when I look at this and I'm thinking, the press is 2 weeks behind. When those numbers were bubbling up, Leicester was in Champions League. And I think the thinking was, from Barcelona's perspective, that if they could get one club with Champions League football, they would have more leverage. Obviously, Leicester's not there anymore. And Arsenal, one of the things, the gloom and doom story yesterday was Arteta saying a lot of their moves hinge on the results of the FA Cup final. Arsenal is the one of those three clubs who currently, as of Tuesday, is not in Europa League. But if they win, then all three clubs are pretty much on equal standing on what they can offer Philippe Coutinho as far as European football. So that kind of closes that gap. Dean, let's talk about another question mark, or one of these black holes that maybe isn't going to be filled right away. But a story came out on The Athletic today that Arsenal could move up to three of their center backs, Mustafi, Socrates, and Holding. And, we know their numbers are thin right now. William Saliba is joining. David Luiz is on the squad. But if those three guys are going out, somebody has to come in. But center back is one of those positions where all the rumors have just gone dead for the last week.
Yeah. I was just trying to think about the whole thing was, so obviously Holding, Socrates, Mustafi are the three that are being mentioned. A few weeks ago, since we all started talking about deep into transfers on the podcast, we kind of looked at those three plus Mavropanos, and we all said possibly on loan, which he has now gone on loan. And I said as well, maybe even Chambers when he's back to full fitness, he would go as well. I've always said we'd see 3 or 4 no longer here this season, and we'd be bringing in a good few, obviously on a couple, I guess, on top of Saliba and Pablo Mari. Things have gone a lot quiet in terms of the ins and outs, but do you remember, as we said before as well, there was a lot of talk that Arsenal have suddenly gone radio silent with the media. And now the window's officially open, I think little bits here and there will start to slowly come out, but not so much in the way that we could, I guess, I guess we were talking about something yesterday in the chat, 4 of us, and it was pointed out that clearly Arteta's words have confused like me as well. Something I said, I can't remember exactly what it was, but then you guys were like, well, he's obviously, what he's saying is working, and he's throwing things. Things are going quiet for specific reason, for obvious reasons. Now, if we're looking at the outgoings, Socrates today, you've had both his PR people and his agent have said that he's going nowhere. He plans on going nowhere. He plans to fight for his place. Whereas we'd heard a couple of days ago or yesterday that Arteta has told him that he's not in his plans for next season. Mustafi, he's now probably going to be injured until well into the new season. Now he's just had an operation on his hamstring. Whether or not he'll be better by the end of October or by October 5th, is another matter. But obviously when things like this happen, they can't shift them on. Normally outgoings, though, you don't really hear much about, with Arsenal especially. You don't normally hear the outgoings until sort of the day before the deal ends up being announced. So I expect something like that to just come out of the blue, especially for someone like Socrates, who's been speaking, or his people have been speaking up so much about how he wants to stay. I believe that's possibly floundering from them because something may be going on in the background, possibly in the Bundesliga or Serie A. Mustafi obviously will depend on how fit he becomes up until the end of the window. Holding, there was a small bit of noise recently. I don't know if that was an opinion or if there was something there about Leeds possibly looking at him. Now they're coming up. Ryan, I think, pointed out that one of the centre-backs they had was going back to his parent club. Name escapes me. I'm sure Ryan can fill us in on that one, but name escapes me. But
Ben White.
That's it, Ben White. Thank you. Yep. So he's obviously going back to his parent club, so they will be looking for a central defender. I can see a couple of Premier League clubs possibly looking. Now, whether or not Holding goes on loan or permanently, I don't know. But personally, I'm not sure he's going to fit the profile that Arteta's looking at now. In terms of incomings, there's been nothing on that side at the central defenders ever since there was that report that Dayot Upamecano had extended his contract with Leipzig, which kind of came out of nowhere. I'm not sure if anywhere big has clarified that yet. I think everywhere seems to be citing the Buzz Sports article. But yeah, so yeah.
I guess we're just going to have to wait on that one, right? But
yeah, it seems it.
It gives me some confidence, though. I don't think that the club would put 3 names out there and say these players are not in our plans unless they had some definite targets in mind. Now, if they want to be cagey and not tell us, I'm content with that because it tells me they have a plan and they don't want to play this out in the press. And then maybe that's one thing we all have to understand is that, and we talk about this a lot in the group, Arsenal does not. They don't bargain in the press, and we talk about this a lot. You see these stories in the papers, in the English press, and in the foreign press, and you figure, where is this coming from? Where is it emanating from? And far more often than not, it's coming from Spain. It's coming from Germany. It's coming from Portugal. It's not coming from Arsenal Football Club. They really, really tightened up their leakage. So I guess we have to adjust our expectations accordingly and maybe take some of these stories with more patience and more salt. Gentlemen, let's wrap it up. Again, we're 4 days away from a very important cup final rematch. Frank Lampard, Mikel Arteta. Mikel faced this club, I think it was his second match as manager, had a lead, lost it late. I don't forget which one of you was talking about if you list all the managers that he's defeated in his short time as head of Arsenal, it's a very impressive list, but this is one name that he doesn't have yet. Here's his chance, again, with the trophy sitting at the end. Dean, I'm going to start with you and work the other way. Give me a prediction for the match.
Ooh, I'm very confident. I'm actually very confident. I think we're going to do it. I think we're going to win 3-1. And I think Aubameyang is going to score all three.
Oh, that's very confident. Sam? Does he get his revenge, Mikel?
Yes. In the latest possible kick, 1-1 penalties, Arsenal.
Ooh, okay. Ryan? Do you see a win? By what flavor?
I think we're gonna play like we did against City on the counter attack, and I think we're gonna beat them 2-0. David Luiz is going to score the first, and Aubameyang is going to score the second.
All right, you guys are clean sheets, or a couple of you clean sheets. I don't have as much confidence in the defense of this club, but I'm going to say a win. It's going to be the reverse of the first match. Arsenal will score late. Aubameyang, they'll win 2-1. All right. That brings us to the end of this episode. Again, we thank all of you joining us live. Those of you who are going to, if you come in and listen to us late, listen to us on the pod, again, we welcome you. We will be back for live, pre-game, halftime, post-game of the FA Cup final this Saturday. So please join us then. And then obviously
the celebrations.
And the celebrations, yes. Look forward to that. And then obviously every Tuesday we are here. We will take you through the transfer window. The rumors are just getting started. As we told you, be patient. We all think good things are going to happen with this club. So on that optimistic note, we're going to bid you all a good evening.